The first rays of sunlight had not yet reached the streets of Lagos when Ada Okafor opened her eyes. The small room where she lived was still dark, except for the faint light coming through a tiny window with a cracked glass pane. The room was simple. There was an old wooden bed, a small table, 2 plastic chairs, and a tiny gas stove standing in one corner. The walls had lost their paint years ago, and the roof leaked whenever it rained. Even though the room was far from comfortable, Ada was thankful for it. It was the only home she and her grandmother had. She sat up slowly and stretched her arms. Years of carrying heavy baskets of bananas had made her body strong. Her shoulders were broad, her arms were muscular, and her legs were firm from walking long distances every day. Some people laughed whenever they saw her. Others whispered behind her back. But Ada never let their words stop her. She quietly folded her blanket before walking to the other side of the room where her grandmother lay sleeping. "Grandma," she whispered softly. The old woman slowly opened her eyes. "Good morning, my child." Ada smiled warmly. "Good morning. How are you feeling today?" Her grandmother forced a smile. "I feel a little better." Ada knew it was not true. The old woman's cough had become worse over the past few months, and buying medicine was becoming more difficult each week. Still, her grandmother never wanted Ada to worry. "I'm making breakfast," Ada said. Within a few minutes, she boiled water and prepared a simple meal of pap with a small piece of bread. It was not much, but it was all they could afford. She placed the food before her grandmother. "You need to eat before taking your medicine." "What about you?" her grandmother asked. Ada laughed gently. "I'll eat later at the market." It was another small lie. Many mornings, Ada skipped breakfast so her grandmother could have enough food. After helping the old woman take her medicine, Ada picked up a worn-out cloth bag and counted the money she had saved from the previous day. 1, 2, 3. She sighed. It was barely enough to buy another basket of bananas. Still, she thanked God quietly. "As long as I can keep trying, there is hope." She tied a scarf around her hair, wore her faded blue blouse, an old wrapper tied around her waist, and a pair of worn slippers whose soles had been repaired several times. Before leaving, she held her grandmother's hand. "I'll be back before evening. Be careful on the road." "I will." After locking the door, Ada began her daily journey. The morning air was cool, and the streets were slowly coming alive. Buses honked loudly. Motorcycles sped past. Street sweepers cleaned the roads. Food vendors arranged their stalls. The city never truly slept. After walking for nearly 30 minutes, Ada reached the wholesale fruit market where farmers delivered fresh bananas every morning. The place was already crowded. People shouted prices. Buyers argued with sellers. Workers carried heavy loads from one truck to another. Ada greeted everyone politely. "Good morning." Some smiled back. Others were too busy to answer. She finally reached an elderly farmer she bought from almost every day. "Good morning, Baba Musa." The old man smiled. "Ada, you're early as always." "I have to be." He looked at her kindly. "I picked some fresh bananas for you." He pointed toward a large basket filled with ripe yellow bananas. "They're beautiful," Ada said with a smile. "I know you'll sell them all." Ada counted every naira she had. After paying, only a few coins remained in her pocket. She carefully balanced the heavy basket on her head. Most women would have struggled with its weight. Ada lifted it with ease. One young man nearby laughed. "That girl is stronger than most men." His friend laughed too. "Look at those muscles. She's probably stronger than her future husband." Several people laughed loudly. Ada heard every word. She simply smiled and continued walking. She had heard worse. When she was younger, their words had hurt her deeply. She used to cry whenever people called her names. Now she had learned something important. People who mocked her never helped pay her grandmother's hospital bills. Their laughter could not buy food. Their opinions could not change her future. Only hard work could. She kept walking. Nearly 40 minutes later, Ada reached the roadside where she sold bananas every day. It was a busy area filled with offices, small shops, and buses carrying workers across the city. She placed her basket on a wooden table she had built herself. Carefully, she arranged the bananas in neat rows. She believed customers liked buying from clean and organized sellers. Soon, the first customer arrived. It was an old woman carrying a shopping bag. "My daughter, how much?" Ada told her the price. The old woman smiled. "You always give good bananas." "Thank you, Mama." The woman bought 6 bananas before leaving happily. One by one, more customers came. Some bought 1 banana. Others bought several bunches. Ada greeted each customer with kindness. She never cheated anyone. If she accidentally received extra money, she always returned it. Many customers trusted her because of her honesty. Around mid-morning, 3 fashionable young women walked past her stand. They wore expensive clothes and high heels. One of them looked at Ada's muscular arms and laughed. "My goodness! Look at her!" Another covered her mouth while laughing. "Is she a banana seller or a bodybuilder?" The third woman shook her head. "No man wants a woman with muscles." The 3 women burst into laughter. People nearby turned to look. Ada continued arranging her bananas. She acted as if she had heard nothing. Inside, however, the words stung. She remembered being a little girl. Back then, she had loved helping her father on his small farm. She carried baskets of fruits and vegetables every day. Her father often smiled proudly. "You are strong, Ada. Never be ashamed of your strength." Those words stayed with her. After her parents died in a road accident years later, she had no choice but to continue working hard. Every heavy basket she carried made her stronger. Every difficult day made her braver. She refused to be ashamed of surviving. A little boy suddenly appeared beside her table. He stared at the bananas with hungry eyes. His clothes were dirty, and he looked no older than 7. "Good morning," Ada said gently. The boy quickly looked away. "Good morning. Are you hungry?" He nodded without speaking. "Where are your parents?" The boy lowered his head. "I don't know." Ada looked at him sadly. She picked 2 ripe bananas and handed them to him. "Here." The boy stepped back. "I don't have money." "I know. They're free." His eyes became wide. "Really?" Ada smiled. "Yes." The little boy quickly took the bananas. "Thank you." He ran away happily. A nearby trader watched everything. "You keep giving food away." Ada smiled. "If I were that hungry, I would pray someone helped me too." The trader shook her head. "You have a soft heart." Ada laughed. "Maybe." Business continued throughout the afternoon. The hot sun became stronger. Sweat rolled down Ada's face. Her arms ached from lifting baskets. Her feet hurt from standing. Still, she refused to complain. Whenever customers came, she welcomed them with the same cheerful smile. As evening approached, dark clouds slowly gathered across the sky. Many traders hurried to pack their goods. Ada checked her basket. Only a few bananas remained. She smiled. It had been a good day. She sold the last bunch to a young office worker before packing her table. After counting her earnings, her smile faded slightly. The money was enough to buy tomorrow's bananas, pay part of the rent, and purchase some medicine for her grandmother. But there would be almost nothing left afterward. She placed the money safely inside her bag. Then she stopped at a nearby pharmacy on her way home. The pharmacist greeted her kindly. "Welcome, Ada. I need Grandma's medicine." He handed her the small packet. After paying, she looked at the few remaining notes in her hand. It wasn't much. Still, she thanked God. She knew many people had nothing at all. The journey home felt longer because she was tired. By the time she reached her small apartment, the sky had turned orange. She unlocked the door quietly. Her grandmother was sitting outside on a small wooden chair. The old woman's face lit up immediately. "You are back." Ada smiled. "I brought your medicine." Her grandmother hugged her tightly. "My child, you work too hard." Ada smiled. "I'll rest someday." When? When life becomes easier." The old woman gently touched Ada's strong hands. "These hands remind me of your father." Ada looked down at them. They were rough from years of work. There were small scars from lifting heavy baskets. But she was proud of them. They were the hands that kept her family alive. That evening, they shared a simple dinner of rice and stew. After eating, Ada washed the dishes before sitting outside their room. The night breeze cooled her tired body. She looked up at the stars shining brightly above Lagos. Sometimes she wondered if life would always be this difficult. Would she always struggle to pay rent? Would her grandmother recover? Would she ever own a small fruit shop instead of selling by the roadside? She did not know the answers, but she refused to lose hope. She whispered a quiet prayer. "Dear God, thank you for today. Thank you for giving me strength. Please heal my grandmother and help me keep going. I don't need to be rich. I just want a better life for us." She smiled softly as she stood up. Tomorrow would bring another long day, another heavy basket, another walk through the busy streets, another chance to earn an honest living. What Ada did not know was that somewhere across the city, a handsome billionaire named Ethan Williams was also ending his day, feeling empty despite all his wealth. Their worlds were completely different. One lived in a tiny room and worried about buying medicine. The other lived in a mansion surrounded by luxury. Neither of them could imagine that fate was quietly preparing to bring their paths together. And when that day came, both of their lives would change forever. The next morning, Ada Okafor woke before the alarm on her old phone could ring. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and listened carefully. Her grandmother was coughing again. The sound was deep and painful. Ada quickly got out of bed and walked over to her. "Grandma, are you okay?" she asked softly. The old woman smiled weakly. "I'll be fine, my child. It's just the cold morning air." Ada knew it was more than that, but she did not want to argue. She boiled water and prepared warm pap for breakfast. As always, she gave the larger portion to her grandmother. "You have to eat," Ada said. "What about you?" "I'll eat after I sell some bananas." Her grandmother looked at her with loving eyes. "You always say that." Ada simply smiled. She did not tell her grandmother the truth. She planned to wait until midday before eating anything. If she spent money on breakfast, there might not be enough left to buy medicine later. After washing the plates, she tied a scarf around her head, picked up her empty basket, and left for the wholesale market. The streets were already becoming busy. Bus conductors shouted for passengers. Motorcycles weaved through traffic. Street cleaners swept dust into neat piles. Vendors pushed carts filled with bread, fruits, and vegetables. Lagos was awake. Ada reached Baba Musa's fruit stand just as a truck finished unloading fresh bananas. The old farmer smiled when he saw her. "Good morning, Ada." "Good morning, Baba. You look tired." She laughed softly. "I'll sleep when I become rich." Baba Musa laughed. "Then I hope you become rich very soon." He helped her choose the freshest bananas. As Ada counted her money, Baba Musa noticed she was a little short. "You can pay the rest tomorrow," he said kindly. Ada quickly shook her head. "No, Baba. I don't like owing people." She searched every pocket of her bag until she found enough coins. "There," she said with relief. The old man smiled proudly. "You are one of the most honest people I know." Ada thanked him before lifting the heavy basket onto her head. She walked carefully toward her usual selling spot. The basket was heavy, but she hardly noticed anymore. Years of hard work had made carrying heavy loads feel normal. As she walked, some young men unloading goods from another truck noticed her. One of them whistled. "See those muscles?" Another laughed. "If she slaps someone, they'll sleep for 3 days." The others burst into laughter. Ada heard every word. She kept walking without looking back. She had learned that silence was sometimes stronger than arguments. Soon she reached her wooden table beside the busy road. She arranged the bananas neatly, making sure the ripest ones were in front where customers could easily see them. Business started well. Office workers stopped to buy bananas before heading to work. Taxi drivers bought quick breakfasts. School children begged their parents for fruit. Ada greeted everyone with the same warm smile. "Good morning." "Thank you." "Have a wonderful day." Her kindness made many customers return again and again. Around 10 o'clock, traffic on the road suddenly became very heavy. Cars lined up one behind another. Drivers grew impatient and began pressing their horns loudly. Inside one of the expensive black SUVs sat Ethan Williams. He wore a perfectly fitted navy blue suit. His expensive wristwatch shone in the morning sunlight. The air conditioner kept the car cool despite the growing heat outside. Normally, Ethan would have been working in one of his company offices by now. But today, he had decided to drive himself instead of using his chauffeur. He needed some quiet time. Running several successful companies sounded exciting to people outside, but to Ethan it often felt exhausting. Every meeting was about money. Every conversation was about profits. Even many of the people around him only seemed interested in what they could gain from him. Sometimes he wished life could be simpler. His phone rang. The caller ID showed his mother's name. He answered. "Good morning, Mom." "Ethan, don't forget dinner tonight." "I remember. I also invited Vanessa." Ethan sighed quietly. Vanessa Cole was the daughter of another billionaire family. His mother had spent years trying to convince him to marry her. Vanessa was beautiful and elegant, but Ethan never felt any real connection with her. Everything between them felt forced. "I'll be there," he replied before ending the call. He leaned back in his seat. The traffic was barely moving. As he looked out of the window, something caught his attention. An elderly blind man stood at the edge of the road, holding a walking stick. Cars rushed past without stopping. People walked around him as if he were invisible. The old man looked frightened. He wanted to cross but did not know when it was safe. Just then, Ethan saw a young woman carrying a heavy basket of bananas on her head. Instead of ignoring the old man like everyone else, she carefully placed her basket on the ground. She walked over to him. "Grandpa," she said kindly, "let me help you." The old man's face brightened. "Thank you, my daughter." Ada gently held his arm and guided him across the busy road. She waited patiently for the traffic to slow before crossing. Several drivers stopped to allow them pass. When they reached the other side safely, the old man smiled gratefully. "God bless you." He searched inside his pocket and pulled out a small folded note. "Please take this." Ada smiled and slowly pushed his hand back. "No, Grandpa. But you helped me." "I know. Please take it." She shook her head. "You need the money more than I do." The old man's eyes became watery. "You have a beautiful heart." Ada smiled once more. "Take care of yourself." She picked up her basket and returned to her stand. Inside his SUV, Ethan watched everything. He was surprised. Most people today expected something in return whenever they helped others. But this young woman had refused money without thinking twice. He found himself smiling. "She's different," he whispered to himself. Before he could think further, another loud scream came from the opposite side of the road. A little boy suddenly ran into the street, chasing a plastic ball. His mother shouted in panic, "David, stop!" At that exact moment, a speeding motorcycle rushed toward the child. People screamed. Some covered their eyes. Everything happened within seconds. Without thinking about herself, Ada dropped her basket and ran. She reached the little boy just before the motorcycle. Using all her strength, she grabbed him and pulled him away. The motorcycle sped past, missing them by only a few inches. The frightened child burst into tears. His mother ran over and hugged him tightly. "My son! My baby!" she cried as she thanked Ada repeatedly. "You saved him. You saved my child." Ada smiled gently. "I'm just happy he's safe." While comforting the little boy, she suddenly noticed something behind her. Her basket had fallen over. Dozens of bananas rolled across the road. Cars drove over many of them. Some were crushed beneath tires. Others disappeared into dirty roadside gutters. Within moments, nearly half of her goods were destroyed. Several traders nearby sighed sadly. One woman walked over. "Ada, you've lost so much." Another trader shook his head. "That was today's profit." The little boy's mother looked guilty. "I'm so sorry." Ada smiled softly. "Please don't cry. Your son is alive. That matters more." The woman hugged her tightly. "I'll never forget your kindness." Inside his SUV, Ethan could hardly believe what he had just witnessed. She had sacrificed almost half of her day's income to save a stranger's child. Without hesitation, without expecting praise, without asking for anything, the traffic finally started moving again. But Ethan did not drive away immediately. Instead, he kept watching Ada. She picked up the remaining bananas one by one. She dusted them carefully before placing them back on the table. There was no anger on her face, no complaints, no tears, just quiet determination. For some reason, Ethan could not stop thinking about her. His driver often told him that money revealed people's true character. Yet here was someone who had almost nothing and still chose kindness over profit. He drove away slowly, but his thoughts remained with the banana seller. Back at the market, Ada continued selling the few bananas she had left. One elderly customer had seen everything. He bought several bananas before quietly placing extra money on the table. Ada noticed immediately. "Sir, you've paid too much." The man smiled. "I know. It's for saving that little boy." Ada handed the extra money back. "I appreciate it, but I only charge for bananas." The old man laughed warmly. "You really are something special." He accepted the change and walked away, shaking his head in amazement. The nearby traders smiled. One of them said, "Ada, one day your kindness will come back to you." She laughed softly. "I don't help people because I expect rewards. I help because it's the right thing to do." As the afternoon sun became hotter, business slowed down. Ada finally sat down to eat the small piece of bread she had packed from home. Before she could take a bite, she noticed an elderly woman sitting nearby. The woman looked exhausted and hungry. Without thinking twice, Ada walked over and offered her half of the bread. The old woman smiled gratefully. "You've already done enough for today." Ada smiled. "There is always room for one more act of kindness." The woman blessed her before eating. Later that evening, Ada packed her remaining bananas and began the long walk home. She counted her earnings. Because so many bananas had been destroyed, she had earned far less than usual. For a brief moment, worry filled her heart. How would she buy tomorrow's bananas? Would there be enough money for her grandmother's medicine? She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Worry won't solve anything," she whispered. "I'll work harder tomorrow." Meanwhile, Ethan finally arrived at his company headquarters. His assistant hurried toward him with several files. "Sir, your investors are waiting." He nodded. "I'll be there." He entered the meeting room filled with wealthy businessmen. Charts covered the large screen. People discussed profits worth billions of naira. But Ethan's mind kept drifting back to the roadside market. He remembered the young woman carrying the heavy basket. He remembered her helping the blind man. He remembered her risking everything to save the little boy. And most of all, he remembered her smile. For the first time in many years, the billionaire found himself thinking about someone who had no wealth, no fame, and no influence. He did not even know her name. Yet somehow, the image of the poor banana seller stayed in his heart long after the meeting had ended. Without realizing it, fate had already begun weaving their lives together. Neither Ethan nor Ada knew that this chance encounter on a busy Lego street was only the beginning of a story that would change both of their lives forever. The following morning, Ethan Williams woke up earlier than usual. He stood by the large window in his bedroom, looking over the beautiful city of Lagos. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky with shades of orange and gold. Normally, Ethan enjoyed peaceful mornings. He would drink coffee, read business reports, and prepare for meetings. But this morning was different. Instead of thinking about company profits or new projects, his mind was filled with the image of the young banana seller. He remembered how she had helped the blind man. He remembered how she had risked her own safety to save a little boy. Most of all, he remembered the smile on her face after losing nearly half of her bananas. It was a smile that carried hope even in difficult times. Ethan smiled to himself. "I don't even know her name," he whispered. A knock came at his bedroom door. "Come in." His personal assistant, James, stepped inside. "Good morning, sir." "Good morning. You have a meeting with investors at 9, another meeting at 11, lunch with the board of directors, And dinner with your mother tonight. Ethan nodded absent-mindedly. James noticed something unusual. Sir, are you all right? Ethan smiled. I'm fine. James had worked for Ethan for 6 years. He had never seen his boss look so distracted. If there's anything you need. I'm okay, James. After James left, Ethan walked to his wardrobe. Rows of expensive suits filled one side. Luxury watches and polished shoes filled another. He looked at them for a few seconds before shaking his head. No. Today he wanted something simple. He picked an ordinary pair of jeans, a plain white t-shirt, and a light jacket. Looking into the mirror, he smiled. For once, I don't want anyone to recognize me. Across the city, Ada was also beginning another busy day. Her grandmother was already awake. You look happier today, the old woman said with a smile. Ada laughed. Do I? You've been smiling since you woke up. I guess yesterday wasn't all bad. Her grandmother looked surprised. You lost many bananas. I know. But that little boy is alive. The old woman nodded proudly. Your parents would be proud of you. Ada smiled quietly. Those words warmed her heart. After preparing breakfast and helping her grandmother take her medicine, Ada picked up her basket and headed once again to Baba Moose's fruit stand. The old farmer greeted her warmly. Welcome back, Ada. Good morning, Baba. I heard what happened yesterday. News traveled quickly among traders. You saved a child. Ada smiled shyly. I just did what anyone should do. Baba Musa laughed. Not everyone would have. He carefully selected another basket of fresh bananas. This one is sweeter than yesterday's. Ada thanked him before paying. As always, she balanced the heavy basket on her head with ease. Some nearby workers watched in amazement. One young man whispered to his friend, I've never seen anyone carry that much weight so easily. His friend nodded. She's incredibly strong. This time nobody laughed. Many had heard about what she did yesterday. Some people who had once mocked her now looked at her with respect. Ada continued walking without paying attention. She believed actions spoke louder than words. At exactly 8 o'clock, Ethan parked his expensive sports car several streets away from the market. He did not want anyone connecting him to the luxurious vehicle. He locked the car and walked toward the roadside wearing his simple clothes. Without his expensive suit and luxury watch, he looked like an ordinary young businessman. As he approached the market, he immediately spotted Ada. She was arranging fresh bananas neatly on her wooden table. The morning sunlight reflected on the yellow fruits. She hummed a soft song while working. There was something peaceful about watching her. Unlike many people, she never seemed to rush. She took pride in even the smallest task. Ethan stood quietly for a moment before walking toward her. Good morning. Ada looked up and smiled warmly. Good morning. Her smile was so natural that Ethan almost forgot why he had come. Would you like some bananas? Yes. How many? Ethan looked at the basket. I'll take 10. Ada quickly chose the ripest bananas. She cleaned each one with a soft cloth before placing them into a small bag. Here you are. How much? She told him the price. Ethan reached into his pocket and handed her several large notes. Ada counted the money. Then she looked up. Sir. Yes. You gave me too much. It's okay. You can keep the rest. Ada immediately began counting the change. No. Ethan looked surprised. No. I only charge for what you bought. But it's a gift. She smiled politely. I appreciate it. But I didn't earn it. She handed him the extra money. Ethan stared at her. For several seconds he said nothing. He had met countless people who accepted every gift he offered. Some even asked for more. But this young woman was refusing extra money without hesitation. He slowly accepted the change. Thank you. She smiled. You're welcome. As Ethan turned to leave, curiosity got the better of him. My name is Ethan. Ada smiled. I'm Ada. So, Ada. Yes. Have you always sold bananas? She laughed softly. For almost 7 years. Do you enjoy it? She looked at the bananas before answering. It feeds my grandmother and me. That's enough reason to keep going. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. You must work very hard. I do. But hard work has never scared me. She lifted another heavy bunch of bananas while speaking. Her movements were effortless. Ethan could not help smiling. I can see that. Both of them laughed. For the first time in months, Ethan felt completely relaxed. There was no pressure, no business talk, no fake compliments, just a simple conversation between two strangers. I should get going, Ethan said. I have work. Ada nodded. I hope you enjoy the bananas. I'm sure I will. As Ethan walked away, he found himself smiling. He had only spent a few minutes with Ada, yet somehow his morning already felt brighter. Inside his company headquarters, James noticed the change immediately. His boss was smiling. That almost never happened before morning meetings. Good morning, sir. Morning, James. You seem happy today. Ethan laughed. Do I? A little. I guess it's a good day. James looked confused but decided not to ask questions. During the meeting, investors discussed new projects worth billions of naira. Everyone focused on numbers. Everyone except Ethan. His thoughts wandered back to the roadside market. He remembered Ada's honesty. He remembered the way she refused the extra money. He smiled quietly. One investor noticed. Mr. Williams? Ethan looked up. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? The meeting continued. But even after it ended, Ethan could not stop thinking about her. Back at the market, business was going well. Several regular customers arrived one after another. An elderly teacher bought 6 bananas. A taxi driver bought 4. A nurse bought 2 bunches. Everyone greeted Ada warmly. Around noon, a little girl approached the stand. She looked about 8 years old. She held a few coins tightly in her hand. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Ada replied with a smile. I want bananas. Ada counted the little girl's money. It was enough for only 1 banana. Instead of giving her 1, Ada secretly placed 3 bananas into the bag. The little girl looked confused. I only paid for 1. Ada smiled. I know. The other 2 are a gift. The little girl's face lit up. Really? Yes. Thank you. She skipped away happily. A nearby trader laughed. Ada, one day you'll give away your whole shop. Ada smiled. If someone smiles because of me, I don't lose anything. The trader shook her head. You really are different. That evening, Ethan finished work earlier than usual. Instead of driving straight home, he found himself returning to the same road. He told himself he only wanted more bananas. Deep inside, he knew that wasn't the real reason. When he reached Ada's stand, she was packing up for the day. She smiled the moment she saw him. You're back. I hope I'm not too late. She laughed. I saved a few bananas. I'm lucky. He bought another small bunch. This time, neither of them seemed in a hurry to leave. So, Ethan asked, what do you do after work? Ada smiled. I go home. That's all. I cook. I clean. I take care of my grandmother. And then I sleep. Ethan nodded. You work every single day? Except Sundays. Don't you ever get tired? She looked at her rough hands. Of course I get tired. But giving up won't pay the bills. Ethan admired her even more. Many wealthy people he knew complained about small inconveniences. Yet this woman carried heavy baskets every day without complaining. What about you? Ada asked. What do you do? Ethan smiled carefully. I work in construction. Really? Yes. Do you enjoy it? He laughed. Some days. Other days. It's stressful. Ada nodded knowingly. I guess every job has its challenges. It does. For a few seconds, silence filled the space between them. But it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. Felt peaceful. Finally, Ethan looked at his watch. I should leave. Me too. He picked up his bananas. Thank you, Ada. She smiled warmly. See you again. Those simple words stayed in Ethan's heart during the drive home. See you again. No one had said those words to him so sincerely in a long time. When he arrived at his mansion, The large gates opened automatically. Luxury cars filled the driveway. Garden lights illuminated the expensive property. Everything looked perfect. Yet somehow, his thoughts remained with the small roadside banana stand. He realized something surprising. For years, people had admired him because of his money. Ada had spoken to him like he was simply another customer. She did not know he was a billionaire. She did not try to impress him. She did not ask him for favors. She simply treated him with kindness and respect. As Ethan sat alone in his large dining room that night, he smiled. He looked at the bananas he had bought from Ada. He peeled one slowly and took a bite. It tasted sweeter than any fruit he had eaten in years. Not because the banana was special, but because it reminded him of the honest young woman who had sold it to him. For the first time in a very long while, Ethan looked forward to tomorrow. He had a feeling he would be visiting the roadside market again. And although neither of them realized it yet, a simple friendship had quietly begun to grow between the poor banana seller and the handsome billionaire. For the next 2 weeks, Ethan Williams found himself visiting the roadside market almost every morning. At first, he told himself it was because he enjoyed eating fresh bananas. But deep inside, he knew the truth. He looked forward to seeing Ada. No matter how stressful his work became, a few minutes at her small roadside stand always made his day better. Ada had no idea who Ethan really was. To her, he was simply a kind customer who worked in construction. She enjoyed talking to him because he never laughed at her muscular body or treated her badly because she was poor. Every morning, their conversations became a little longer. Sometimes they talked about the weather. Sometimes they talked about food. Sometimes they laughed over funny stories from the market. The friendship between them grew naturally. One bright Monday morning, Ethan arrived carrying a paper bag. "Good morning, Ada." She looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Ethan. I brought you something." Ada looked surprised. "For me?" "Yes." He handed her the paper bag. Inside was a bottle of cold water and a meat pie. Ada stared at them. "You didn't have to do this." "I know. I just thought you might be hungry." She smiled gratefully. "Thank you. I'll eat it during my break." "I'm glad." As Ethan bought his usual bananas, an elderly woman walked toward the stand. She recognized Ethan immediately. Her eyes grew wide with surprise. Before she could say anything, Ethan quietly placed a finger over his lips. The woman understood immediately. She smiled and nodded before walking away. Ada noticed the strange exchange. "Do you know her?" she asked. Ethan smiled calmly. "Not really. I think she mistook me for someone else." Ada laughed. "That happens sometimes." Ethan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. His identity was still safe. Later that afternoon, Ethan attended a business meeting at the headquarters of Williams Group. The meeting room was filled with directors and investors. Charts showing company profits covered the large screen. James stood beside Ethan, explaining the latest financial report. Construction profits increased by 12%. Hotel bookings are also improving. Everyone clapped. Ethan smiled politely, but his mind drifted back to the roadside market. He wondered if Ada had enjoyed the meat pie. He wondered if business had been good that day. One director noticed Ethan staring into space. "Sir." Ethan blinked. "I'm sorry. Please continue." The meeting ended an hour later. As everyone prepared to leave, Ethan's phone rang. It was his mother. "Ethan." "Hello, Mom. Don't forget tonight." He sighed quietly. "Dinner?" "Yes. And Vanessa will be there." "I remember." His mother sounded excited. "She's a wonderful young woman. You really should give her another chance. I'll see you tonight." He ended the call before the conversation could continue. James smiled carefully. "Family dinner?" Ethan nodded. Unfortunately, that evening, Ethan arrived at his parents' luxurious mansion. The house was beautifully decorated with expensive artwork and sparkling chandeliers. Servants welcomed him inside. His mother hugged him warmly. "You finally came. I wouldn't miss dinner." She smiled knowingly. "You'll be happy to know Vanessa is already here." Ethan looked toward the dining room. Vanessa Cole stood beside the table wearing a beautiful red dress. She was elegant, fashionable, and confident. When she saw Ethan, her face lit up. "Ethan!" She walked over and hugged him. "It's been too long." He smiled politely. "It's good to see you too." Vanessa had admired Ethan for years. Their families believed they were the perfect match. Both were wealthy. Both came from respected families. Both had successful careers. The only problem was, Ethan had never loved her. Throughout dinner, Vanessa did most of the talking. She spoke about expensive vacations, luxury shopping, designer clothes, exclusive parties. Everyone listened politely, except Ethan. His thoughts wandered elsewhere. He remembered Ada laughing after a customer mistakenly called her the strongest woman in Lagos. He smiled quietly. Vanessa noticed. "What are you smiling about?" Ethan looked up. "Oh, nothing." She frowned. "You've been distracted all evening." His mother quickly joined the conversation. "He's probably thinking about work." Vanessa wasn't convinced. Something had changed. She could feel it. The following morning, Ethan returned to the roadside market. As soon as Ada saw him, she smiled. "You came." "I said I would." She laughed. "You did." He bought another bunch of bananas before leaning casually against the wooden table. "How's your grandmother?" Ada smiled. "She's feeling a little stronger." "That's wonderful. The medicine is helping." "I'm happy to hear that." At that moment, an elderly woman carrying 2 heavy shopping bags struggled to cross the road. Without hesitation, Ada walked over. "Let me help you." She carried both bags across the street for the woman. When she returned, Ethan smiled. "You help everyone." Ada laughed. "Not everyone. It just feels wrong to ignore people." Ethan admired her even more. Kindness seemed to come naturally to her. She never looked for praise. She simply helped because it was the right thing to do. Meanwhile, across the city, Vanessa sat inside her office thinking about Ethan. Something felt different. For years, Ethan had barely smiled. Now he seemed happier, more relaxed, less interested in expensive parties. She wanted to know why. Later that afternoon, she called one of Ethan's drivers. "I need a small favor." "What is it, madam?" "I want to know where Ethan goes every morning before work." The driver hesitated. "I don't think." "I'll pay you." The driver lowered his voice. "He drives himself now. I don't always know. But yesterday I followed him once. And—" He stopped near a roadside market. Vanessa looked confused. "A market?" "Yes." "Thank you." She ended the call. The next morning, she decided to follow Ethan herself. Keeping a safe distance behind his car, she watched as he parked several streets away from the market. Then something even more surprising happened. Instead of entering an office building, Ethan walked toward a banana stand. Vanessa quickly parked her own car. She adjusted her sunglasses and quietly followed him. From a distance, she watched Ethan smiling as he spoke to the banana seller. The two of them laughed together. Vanessa could hardly believe her eyes. "A roadside trader?" she whispered. "This can't be happening." She watched for several more minutes. The woman was tall and muscular. Her clothes were old but clean. She smiled warmly as she handed Ethan a bag of bananas. Vanessa's face twisted with anger. "So this is why he's been ignoring me." She marched toward the stand. Customers nearby stepped aside as they noticed her expensive clothes and confident walk. Ada looked up politely. "Good morning." Vanessa ignored the greeting. Instead, she looked Ada up and down with obvious disgust. "So, you're the banana seller?" Ada smiled politely. "Yes. Would you like to buy some bananas?" Vanessa laughed loudly. "Buy bananas?" She looked around at the nearby traders. Does she know who she's talking to? Nobody answered. Vanessa turned back to Ada. "You actually think you're good enough to stand here talking to Ethan?" Ada looked confused. "I don't understand." Vanessa folded her arms. "Of course you don't. Girls like you never do." Ethan stepped forward. "Vanessa." She ignored him. You sell bananas on the roadside. You wear cheap clothes. And look at those muscles. She laughed. You look more like a laborer than a woman. Several people nearby became uncomfortable. Ada remained calm. I don't see anything wrong with honest work. Vanessa rolled her eyes. You actually sound proud. I am. I work hard. I earn my money honestly. Vanessa suddenly reached into Ada's basket. She grabbed several bananas and threw them onto the dusty road. Some rolled into the gutter. Others split open when they hit the ground. Nearby traders gasped. Ada's bananas. People stopped to watch. Ada stared silently at the ruined fruit. Before she could speak, Ethan stepped between them. His face had become cold. Enough. Vanessa looked shocked. What? I said enough. His voice was firm. You had no right to do that. Vanessa laughed nervously. They're just bananas. They belong to her. So you owe her an apology. Vanessa blinked. She had never heard Ethan speak to her like that before. You're choosing a banana seller over me? I'm choosing what is right. The crowd became silent. Vanessa's face turned red with embarrassment. You can't be serious. I am. She pointed at Ada. She's nobody. Ethan looked directly into Vanessa's eyes. She deserves respect. Just like everyone else. Vanessa shook her head. I don't believe this. She looked at Ada with anger. This isn't over. Then she turned and walked back to her expensive car. The moment she drove away, everyone began talking at once. I can't believe what happened. That rich woman was so rude. Poor Ada. Several traders helped pick up the bananas that had not been damaged. Ada thanked them one by one. Then she looked at Ethan. You didn't have to defend me. He smiled gently. Yes, I did. Nobody deserves to be treated that way. Ada looked at the crushed bananas on the road. It's all right. I've lost bananas before. Ethan reached into his pocket and took out his wallet. I'll pay for everything she destroyed. Ada immediately shook her head. No. He looked surprised. Why not? You didn't ruin them. But it wasn't your fault. Ethan smiled. You really don't make things easy. Ada laughed softly. I only accept money I earn. Instead of arguing, Ethan bent down beside her. Together, they picked up the remaining bananas. As they worked, neither of them noticed the smiles on the faces of the nearby traders. One elderly woman whispered to another, Did you see the way he defended her? The other woman smiled knowingly. That young man cares about her. Back in her car, Vanessa watched from a distance. She gripped the steering wheel tightly. Her anger burned hotter with every passing second. She had never imagined that Ethan Williams, one of the richest men in the country, would publicly defend a poor banana seller. As she drove away, she made herself a promise. If I can't have Ethan, I'll make sure that banana seller never does. Back at the roadside market, Ada finished arranging the remaining bananas. She turned to Ethan. Thank you. He smiled warmly. You don't have to thank me. I simply stood up for a good person. For a brief moment their eyes met. Neither of them said another word. But something had changed. The friendship between the handsome billionaire and the poor banana seller had grown stronger. At the same time, a new enemy had entered their lives. And neither of them knew just how far jealousy could push someone determined to destroy their happiness. 3 days had passed since Vanessa caused trouble at Ada's banana stand. The roadside market had returned to its normal busy routine, but many traders still talked about what had happened. Some could not believe a wealthy woman had thrown bananas onto the road just because she was jealous. Others could not stop talking about the young man who had defended Ada without fear. Whenever the traders saw Ethan visiting the market, they smiled quietly among themselves. One elderly trader whispered to another, Those two look good together. The other woman laughed softly. They just don't know it yet. Ada pretended not to hear them. She simply arranged her bananas and welcomed her customers with her usual smile. Deep inside, however, she often found herself thinking about Ethan. He was kind. He listened when she spoke. He never looked down on her because she was poor. Most importantly, he respected her. That was something she rarely experienced. On the other side of the city, Ethan was having the same problem. No matter how busy his day became, thoughts of Ada found their way into his mind. During business meetings, he remembered her smile. While signing contracts, he remembered the way she refused money she had not earned. While eating expensive meals, he remembered how she happily shared her simple food with hungry strangers. He shook his head and smiled. "What is happening to me?" he whispered. James, who was standing nearby, looked confused. "Did you say something, sir?" Ethan quickly looked up. "No, nothing." James nodded, although he was certain something had changed in his boss. The serious businessman who rarely smiled now seemed happier every single day. That Friday morning, the sky looked different. Dark gray clouds slowly gathered over Lagos. The air felt heavy. Strong winds blew dust across the roads. People looked up nervously. One trader shook his head. "We're going to have heavy rain today." Another replied, "Very heavy." Ada looked toward the sky while arranging her bananas. "I hope I can sell most of them before the rain starts." Around 8 o'clock, Ethan arrived as usual. He noticed the clouds immediately. "It looks like a storm." Ada nodded. "I think so too. You should go home early today." She smiled. "I wish I could. But if I leave early, I won't earn enough." Ethan understood. He knew every hour mattered to her. He bought his usual bananas. As always, he tried to pay more than the price. As always, Ada returned the extra money. Both of them laughed. "I'll never win this argument," Ethan joked. Ada smiled. "No, you won't." For a few minutes, they talked about simple things. Ethan told her about a construction project his company was working on, carefully leaving out the fact that he owned the company. Ada spoke about her grandmother's improving health. "I'm really happy she's getting stronger," Ethan said. "So am I. She even walked outside yesterday." "That's wonderful." The conversation was interrupted by the loud sound of thunder. Boom! Everyone in the market looked up. The wind became stronger. Plastic bags flew across the road. Shop owners hurried to cover their goods. "I should go," Ethan said. "I have a meeting." Ada nodded. "Drive safely." "You too." He smiled before walking away. Neither of them knew they would meet again much sooner than expected. By early afternoon, the sky had become almost black. Heavy rain began falling without warning. Within minutes, the streets were flooded. Cars switched on their headlights. Drivers struggled to see through the thick rain. Most traders quickly packed their goods and ran for shelter. But Ada stayed. Several elderly traders were struggling to move their heavy baskets. Without thinking about herself, Ada rushed over. "Let me help." She carried one basket after another into nearby shops. An old woman grabbed her arm. "My child, leave your bananas. Save your own goods." Ada smiled. "I'll get them. Let me help everyone first." The old woman shook her head in amazement. "You never change." After helping 3 different traders, Ada finally returned to her own stand. By then, many of her bananas were already soaked. She quickly covered them with a large plastic sheet. Just as she finished, she heard a frightened scream. "Help!" Ada turned. A young pregnant woman stood at the edge of the road. She had been trying to cross before the rain became heavier. Now floodwater surrounded her feet. The road had become slippery. At that exact moment, a large delivery truck came speeding around a corner. The driver pressed the horn loudly, but the wet road made it impossible to stop quickly. People shouted, "Move! Run!" The frightened woman froze. She could not move. Everything happened in only a few seconds. Ada dropped the rope she was using to tie down her bananas. Without thinking, she ran toward the woman. The rain soaked her clothes immediately. Water splashed beneath her feet as she rushed forward. The truck continued sliding toward them. The tires struggled to grip the wet road. People covered their mouths in fear. "Ada, watch out!" Ignoring the danger, Ada reached the pregnant woman. Using all her strength, she pushed the woman toward the sidewalk. The woman fell safely onto the grass. At that same moment, Ada tried to jump away. She almost made it, but the side mirror of the truck struck her shoulder. The force threw her onto the wet road. The truck finally crashed into a concrete electric pole with a loud bang. The entire market became silent. For a second, nobody moved. Then people rushed toward Ada. "She's hurt. Call for help. The ambulance." The pregnant woman crawled toward Ada, crying. "You saved me. You saved my baby." Ada slowly opened her eyes. Her shoulder burned with pain. She tried to sit up. "I'm okay." "No," one trader said firmly. "Don't move." Rain continued falling heavily. Someone placed a jacket over Ada to keep her warm. Another person called emergency services. At almost the same time, Ethan was leaving a business meeting. His phone rang. It was an unknown number. He answered. "Hello. Is this Ethan?" "Yes. This is Mama Grace from the roadside market." Ethan immediately recognized the elderly trader. "What's wrong?" "It's Ada." His heart skipped. "What happened?" "She saved a pregnant woman from a truck. But she was injured." For a moment, Ethan could not speak. Then he grabbed his car keys. "Which hospital?" She told him. "I'll be there." Without waiting another second, Ethan ran toward his car. James saw him rushing past. "Sir." But Ethan didn't stop. He drove faster than he ever had before. His only thought was reaching Ada. "Please be all right. Please." At the hospital, doctors quickly examined Ada. Fortunately, the truck had not hit her directly. The side mirror had struck her shoulder and arm. She also had cuts on her knees and hands from falling onto the rough road. The doctor wrapped her shoulder in a sling. "You've been very lucky. You'll need plenty of rest." Ada smiled weakly. "Thank you, doctor." A few minutes later, Ethan rushed into the waiting area. His clothes were still wet from the rain. He looked around anxiously until he saw Ada sitting quietly on a hospital bed. Relief flooded his face. "Ada." She looked up. "Ethan?" He hurried over. "Are you all right?" She smiled softly. "I've been better." He looked at her injured shoulder. His face became pale. "What were you thinking?" She laughed quietly. "I wasn't thinking." The woman couldn't move. "I had to help." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. He imagined what could have happened if the truck had been only a little closer. The thought terrified him. "You could have died." Ada looked down. "I know. But she and her baby are safe." Just then, the pregnant woman entered the room with her husband. The woman burst into tears the moment she saw Ada. She knelt beside the bed. "Thank you. You saved both of us." Her husband held Ada's hand. "We can never repay you." Ada smiled gently. "Please stand. I'm just glad you're both all right." The couple hugged her before leaving. Ethan watched the entire scene quietly. His admiration for Ada grew even stronger. Even while injured, she was comforting other people. The doctor returned. "She'll recover. But she must avoid lifting heavy objects for several weeks." Ada's smile faded. "I can't." The doctor looked confused. "My grandmother depends on me. If I don't work." Ethan immediately spoke. "Don't worry." Ada looked at him. "I'll help." She quickly shook her head. "No. You've already done enough." "I'm serious. I'll cover the hospital bills." "No." He sighed. "Ada, I can't accept that. It's not charity. It's what friends do." Ada looked at him for several seconds. Finally, she smiled. "Thank you. But only the hospital bills." Ethan smiled back. "I'll take that as a victory." Both of them laughed softly. For the first time since receiving the phone call, the heavy feeling in Ethan's chest disappeared. She was safe. That was all that mattered. Later that evening, Ethan drove Ada home carefully. The rain had finally stopped. The roads were still wet. Neither of them spoke much during the drive. When they reached her small apartment, Ethan helped her out of the car. Her grandmother hurried outside the moment she saw the sling around Ada's shoulder. "My child." She hugged Ada carefully. "What happened?" Ada smiled. "I'm all right, Grandma. It looks worse than it feels." The elderly woman noticed Ethan standing nearby. She looked at him curiously. And who is this? Ada smiled. This is my friend, Ethan. He helped me get home. The old woman folded her hands gratefully. Thank you for taking care of my granddaughter. It was nothing, Ethan replied politely. It was something, the old woman said. You've shown great kindness. Ethan smiled. It was the least I could do. After making sure Ada was comfortable, he prepared to leave. As he reached his car, Ada called softly. Ethan. He turned. Yes. Thank you. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Neither of them said anything else. The silence spoke louder than words. Ethan nodded gently before getting into his car. As he drove away, he realized something that both frightened and excited him. When he heard Ada had been hurt, nothing else had mattered. Not his meetings, not his companies, not the billions of naira he owned. Only one thing had filled his heart: the fear of losing her. For the first time in many years, Ethan could no longer deny the truth. His feelings for the poor banana seller had grown far beyond friendship. Without realizing it, he was falling deeply in love. Almost 2 weeks passed after Ada's accident. The cut on her knees had healed, and the bruises on her hands were almost gone. Her shoulder was getting better, but the doctor had warned her not to carry heavy loads for another week. For someone like Ada, that advice was easier to hear than to follow. If she did not work, she could not earn money. If she could not earn money, she could not take care of her grandmother. Every morning she stood outside their small apartment, looking at the empty basket leaning against the wall. She missed working. She missed talking to her regular customers. And though she refused to admit it to herself, she also missed seeing Ethan every morning. One afternoon, her grandmother noticed her staring through the small window. "What are you thinking about?" the old woman asked with a gentle smile. Ada turned around. "Nothing." Her grandmother laughed softly. "I've known you since you were born. When you say nothing, it usually means something." Ada smiled shyly. "I just miss going to the market." "Only the market?" Ada looked away. "I also miss talking to my customers." Her grandmother watched her carefully. "And the young man named Ethan?" Ada's cheeks became warm. "Grandma!" The old woman laughed happily. "So I guessed correctly." Ada sat beside her. "He's just a friend." "Is he?" "Yes. He has been visiting every day." Ada looked surprised. "He has?" Her grandmother nodded. "He always comes after you fall asleep. He brings fruits, medicine, and asks how you're feeling. He never stays long. He says he doesn't want to disturb your rest." Ada was speechless. She had no idea Ethan had been visiting quietly all this time. "Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to see if you would ask about him first." Ada lowered her head and smiled. Deep inside, she felt happy. Very happy. At that same moment, Ethan was sitting in his office. Several company directors were discussing a new construction project. James stood beside a large screen showing maps and building designs. "Our new shopping mall project will begin next month," James explained. "We're expecting excellent profits." Everyone looked toward Ethan. Normally, he would have asked many questions. Today, he simply nodded. "Looks good." The directors exchanged confused glances. One of them finally spoke. "Sir, is everything all right?" Ethan blinked. "Of course. You seem distracted." He smiled politely. "I've just been thinking." After the meeting ended, James followed Ethan into his office. "You've changed." Ethan looked up from his desk. "What do you mean?" "You smile more. You leave work earlier. And every morning you disappear before coming to the office." Ethan laughed. "You notice too much. It's my job." James folded his arms. "Does this have something to do with the banana seller?" Ethan froze. For a few seconds, neither man spoke. Then Ethan sighed. "So, you know?" James smiled. "I followed you once. I was worried. I thought someone was blackmailing you." Ethan laughed loudly. "Instead, I found you buying bananas every morning." James shook his head with a smile. "I've never seen you look at anyone the way you look at her." Ethan leaned back in his chair. I don't know what happened. It just happened. James became serious. Does she know who you are? Ethan slowly shook his head. No. Why not? I wanted someone to know me, not my money. James understood immediately. He had seen many people pretend to care about Ethan because of his wealth. For the first time, Ethan had found someone who liked him without knowing he was rich. I understand, James said quietly. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. Those words stayed in Ethan's mind long after James left. A few days later, Ada finally returned to the roadside market. The traders cheered when they saw her. Ada is back. We missed you. The elderly women hugged her carefully. You scared us. Ada laughed. I'm much stronger now. You should still take it easy, one trader warned. I will. Although her shoulder still hurt a little, she carefully arranged her bananas on the wooden table. Felt wonderful to be back. Customers who had heard about her accident welcomed her warmly. I'm glad you're all right. We prayed for you. Take care of yourself. Ada thanked everyone. Her heart felt full. Around 9 o'clock, Ethan arrived. The moment he saw Ada standing behind her table again, a huge smile appeared on his face. You came back. Ada smiled just as brightly. I couldn't stay home forever. I'm glad you're here. So am I. He looked carefully at her shoulder. Does it still hurt? A little. But I'm getting stronger every day. That's good. He bought his usual bananas. As always, he handed her extra money. As always, she counted it carefully before returning the change. Both of them laughed. You really never give up, Ada said. And neither do you. For the next 20 minutes, they talked about everything and nothing. The market, food, funny customers, the weather. Their conversations had become so natural that neither of them noticed how much time had passed. An elderly trader smiled as she watched them. They look like husband and wife already, she whispered to another trader. Both women laughed quietly. Meanwhile, across the city, Vanessa Cole sat angrily inside her office. She had not forgotten the humiliation at the market. Every time she remembered Ethan defending Ada, her anger grew stronger. This isn't over, she whispered. One of her assistants entered the room. Ma'am, I want everything you can find about that banana seller. The assistant nodded. I'll begin immediately. By evening, the assistant returned. I found something. Vanessa looked up. What? Her name is Ada Okafor. She lives with her grandmother. She sells bananas every day. That's all. Yes. Vanessa frowned. There must be more. There isn't. Vanessa smiled coldly. If I can't scare her away, I'll make Ethan see the difference between us. The next morning, Ethan received another phone call from his mother. Ethan. Good morning, Mom. I heard you've been spending time in a roadside market. Ethan became silent. Who told you? That doesn't matter. Is it true? He sighed. Yes. His mother's voice became worried. Ethan, our family has a reputation. You can't spend your mornings talking to street traders. They're people too. I didn't say they weren't. But people will talk. Ethan looked out of his office window. I don't care what people say. His mother became quiet. Then she asked softly, Who is she? Ethan smiled before answering. Someone with a good heart. After ending the call, Ethan knew he could no longer avoid the truth. His family would eventually discover everything. And if Ada learned who he really was from someone else, she would feel betrayed. He rubbed his forehead. I have to tell her. That afternoon, Ethan drove to the market earlier than usual. Ada smiled as she saw him. You finished work early today. I needed to talk to you. His serious expression made her worried. Is everything all right? Can we take a walk? She looked at another trader. Can you watch my stand for a few minutes? The woman smiled knowingly. Of course. Ada and Ethan walked slowly toward a quiet park not far from the market. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. Finally, they sat on an empty bench beneath a large tree. Ada looked at him. You've been quiet. Ethan took a deep breath. I haven't been honest with you. She frowned slightly. What do you mean? The things I've told you about myself weren't completely true. Ada waited patiently. My name really is Ethan. She nodded. I know. But I don't just work in construction. Another long silence followed. Then Ethan looked directly into her eyes. I own the construction company. Ada stared at him. He continued speaking before fear could stop him. I also own hotels, banks, technology companies. My full name is Ethan Williams. Ada blinked slowly. For several seconds, she did not speak. Finally, she whispered, The billionaire? Ethan nodded. Yes. She looked at him in disbelief. No. He lowered his head. I'm sorry. You lied to me. I know. You told me you were just an employee. I did. Why? He answered honestly. Because I was tired. Tired of people pretending to like me because of my money. I wanted someone to know the real Ethan. And you decided to lie? I was afraid. Ada stood up. So every morning, you knew. You knew I was telling my life story to one of the richest men in the country. Ethan quickly stood too. I never laughed at you. I never judged you. That's not the point. What is the point? You didn't trust me. His heart sank. I did trust you. No. You trusted a lie. Tears filled Ada's eyes. I thought we were honest with each other. We were. Not completely. She stepped backward. I need to go. Ada. I'm sorry. I really am. She shook her head. I don't know what to believe anymore. Without another word, she turned and walked away. Ethan remained standing beneath the tree. He wanted to stop her. He wanted to explain everything again. But he knew she needed time. Back at the market, Ada quietly packed her bananas earlier than usual. The traders noticed something was wrong. Are you all right? She forced a smile. I'm just tired. She carried her basket home without saying another word. That night she lay awake beside her grandmother. Her heart felt heavy. She remembered every conversation she had shared with Ethan. Every laugh. Every smile. Every morning he bought bananas. Now she wondered how much of it had been real. Meanwhile, Ethan sat alone on the balcony of his mansion. The city lights stretched endlessly before him. He had everything most people dreamed of. Luxury cars, private jets, beautiful houses, successful companies. But none of those things could remove the emptiness he felt inside. For the first time in years, Ethan realized something painful. The greatest fear in his heart was no longer losing money. It was losing Ada. And as the night grew darker, he could only hope that somehow she would find it in her heart to forgive him. 3 long days passed after Ethan revealed the truth. For Ethan, those 3 days felt like 3 years. Every morning, he woke up hoping things would somehow return to normal. He still found himself driving toward the roadside market, even though he knew Ada no longer wanted to see him. The first morning after their conversation in the park, he parked a short distance away and quietly walked toward Ada's banana stand. She was already there. She was arranging fresh bananas just as she always did. For a brief moment, Ethan smiled. Then Ada looked up. The smile on her face disappeared. She quickly turned away and continued serving another customer as if Ethan was not standing there. Ethan waited patiently until the customer left. "Good morning, Ada," he said softly. She did not answer. Instead, she picked up another bunch of bananas and arranged them on the table. Finally, she spoke without looking at him. "Would you like to buy bananas?" Her voice was polite, but it was cold. It sounded like she was speaking to a stranger. Ethan's heart sank. "I came to apologize." "You already did." "I mean it." "I know." Another awkward silence followed. "I'll take 6 bananas," Ethan said quietly. Ada placed 6 bananas into a small bag. She told him the price. He paid exactly the amount she asked for. This time, he did not offer extra money. He knew she would only return it. After handing him the bananas, Ada turned to another customer. "Next, please." It was clear that the conversation was over. Ethan slowly walked away. For the first time since meeting Ada, buying bananas brought him no happiness. He looked back once before leaving. Ada never looked in his direction. That afternoon, Ethan sat inside his office, staring at the files on his desk. James knocked gently before entering. "Sir." Ethan looked up. "What is it?" "You've been looking at the same page for almost 20 minutes. Ethan smiled weakly. "I didn't even notice." James sat across from him. "You told her, didn't you?" Ethan nodded. "I finally told her everything. And she was hurt." James sighed. "I expected that." "So did I." Ethan leaned back in his chair. "I wasn't afraid of telling her I was rich. I was afraid of losing her. And now—" He could not finish the sentence. James spoke gently. "She doesn't seem like someone who hates easily. She's honest. Give her time." Ethan nodded. "I hope you're right." Meanwhile, at the market, Ada tried to focus on her work. But it was difficult. Every time she looked at the road, she expected to see Ethan walking toward her stand. When she did see him, her heart beat faster. Then she remembered the lie. The smile disappeared from her face. One elderly trader noticed everything. Her name was Mama Grace. She had been selling vegetables at the market for over 30 years. That afternoon, after most customers had gone, Mama Grace walked over to Ada. "My daughter." Ada smiled politely. "Yes, Mama? You've been sad." "I'm all right." Mama Grace laughed softly. "When an old woman says you're sad, don't argue." Ada lowered her head. "I've just been thinking." "About that young man?" Ada stayed silent. Mama Grace smiled knowingly. "He cares about you." Ada looked up. "You don't know that." "I have eyes. I saw how worried he was when you were in the hospital. I saw the way he defended you. I saw the way he looks at you." Ada sighed. "He lied." "Yes. He made me believe he was just an ordinary construction worker." Mama Grace nodded. "He shouldn't have lied." Ada looked relieved that someone understood. "But," Mama Grace continued, "ask yourself why he lied." Ada thought for a moment. "He said he wanted someone to know the real him. And do you believe him?" Ada remembered all the mornings they spent talking. She remembered how he treated everyone politely. She remembered him helping her carry things after her injury. She remembered him sitting quietly beside her hospital bed. She nodded slowly. "I think he was telling the truth." Mama Grace smiled. "Then maybe you should listen to your heart." Ada did not answer, but the old woman's words stayed in her mind. That evening, Ada returned home. Her grandmother was sitting outside, peeling vegetables for dinner. The moment she saw Ada's face, she smiled gently. "You've been thinking all day." Ada laughed softly. "Is it really that obvious?" "It is." She sat beside her grandmother. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Finally, Ada broke the silence. "Grandma, what if someone lies because they're afraid?" Her grandmother continued peeling vegetables. "What kind of lie?" "They hide who they really are." The old woman looked at Ada. "Did Ethan finally tell you the truth?" Ada looked surprised. "You knew." Her grandmother smiled. "I suspected. He doesn't behave like an ordinary man. He speaks differently. He carries himself differently. And those hands," she laughed, "they've never done hard labor." Ada smiled despite herself. "So you knew." "I guessed." Ada sighed. "He's one of the richest men in Nigeria." Her grandmother nodded calmly. And he lied." "Did he steal from you?" "No." "Did he insult you?" "No." "Did he ever make you feel ashamed because you were poor?" Ada shook her head. "Never." The old woman reached for Ada's hand. "My child, sometimes people lie because they are proud. Sometimes they lie because they are selfish. And sometimes they lie because they are afraid." Ada looked at her carefully. "I think Ethan belongs to the third group." Tears slowly filled Ada's eyes. "I trusted him." "I know. And now I don't know what to feel." Her grandmother smiled gently. "Take your time. But don't let anger make the decision for you. Let wisdom decide." The next morning, Ethan returned to the market again. He knew Ada might ignore him. Still, he could not stay away. When he arrived, he found her helping an elderly customer choose ripe bananas. He waited patiently. After the customer left, Ada looked at him. "You came again." "I did." She folded her arms. "Why?" "Because I miss talking to you." Her expression softened for only a second before becoming serious again. "I'm busy." "I know. I won't keep you long." She waited. "I only want you to know something." "What?" "Everything I told you about my feelings was real. I never pretended to enjoy talking with you. I never pretended to admire you. I never pretended to care." Ada looked into his eyes. She saw no pride, no arrogance, only sadness. "I know. You do." She nodded slowly. "I know you cared." Ethan looked hopeful. "But I'm still hurt." His shoulders dropped. "I understand. I don't expect you to forgive me today. I'll wait, no matter how long it takes." Ada looked at him for several seconds. Then another customer walked toward the stand. "I have to work." Ethan smiled sadly. "I know. I'll see you." He turned and walked away. Ada watched him leave. For the first time since learning the truth, she felt sorry for him. 2 more days passed. Ethan stopped trying to start long conversations. Instead, he simply bought bananas every morning. He greeted Ada politely. She greeted him back. Slowly, the coldness between them began to fade. One quiet Saturday morning, the market was less crowded than usual. Ethan arrived with his usual smile. "Good morning." Ada smiled back. It was the first genuine smile she had given him in days. "Good morning." He noticed immediately. "You smiled." She laughed softly. "I guess I did. It looks nice." "So do yours." Both of them laughed. The tension between them became lighter. Ethan looked at her carefully. "I've missed hearing you laugh." Ada became quiet. "So have I." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Ethan took a deep breath. "Ada." "Yes." "Can we start over?" She looked at him silently. "No lies this time. I promise. I want you to know every part of my life. The good parts. The difficult parts. Everything." Ada thought about all the conversations they had shared. She remembered his kindness. She remembered how frightened he looked in the hospital. She remembered him defending her against Vanessa. Most of all, she remembered how peaceful she felt whenever they talked. A small smile appeared on her face. "We can start over." Ethan's eyes brightened. "As friends." She nodded. "As friends." He smiled so widely that several nearby traders noticed. Mama Grace whispered to another woman, "I told you. They wouldn't stay apart for long." The other woman smiled. "Some friendships are stronger than misunderstandings." Ethan bought his usual bananas. As Ada counted the money, she looked up with a playful smile. "You know." "What?" "You still gave me too much." Ethan laughed loudly. "I forgot." She handed him the extra money. "I still only take what I earn." "I should have known. I'll probably never win." "You won't." Both of them laughed again. The sound made the nearby traders smile. Felt like sunshine after several days of rain. As Ethan prepared to leave, he looked back at Ada. "Thank you." She tilted her head. "For what?" "For giving me another chance." Ada smiled warmly. "Don't waste it." "I won't." He meant every word. As Ethan walked toward his car, his heart felt lighter than it had in days. He knew he had not won Ada's full trust back yet. She had agreed to be friends again. Nothing more. But that was enough. Friendship could grow. Trust could heal. And perhaps, one day, love could find its way back into their hearts. Standing behind her banana stand, Ada watched Ethan disappear into the crowd. She realized something that surprised her. When he smiled, she smiled too. She quickly looked away and shook her head. "He's only my friend," she whispered to herself. But deep inside, her heart was beginning to hope for something more. Neither of them knew that while they were slowly rebuilding their friendship, someone else was watching from a distance. Vanessa Cole sat inside her car across the street. She had seen Ethan smile. She had seen Ada smile back. Her hands tightened around the steering wheel. So, they've made peace. A cold smile slowly spread across her face. That won't last. She started her car and drove away, already thinking of her next move. The friendship between the poor banana seller and the handsome billionaire had survived its first great test. But even greater challenges were waiting just ahead. A week passed after Ada and Ethan decided to start over as friends. Their conversations became natural again. Every morning, Ethan stopped by the roadside market before going to work. He bought bananas, greeted the other traders politely, and spent a few minutes talking with Ada. This time, there were no secrets between them. Ada knew Ethan was one of the richest businessmen in the country. Surprisingly, knowing the truth changed very little. She still treated him the same way she always had. She still laughed at his jokes. She still returned his extra money whenever he tried to pay more than the price of the bananas. One morning, Ethan smiled as he handed her a bundle of notes. "I know you're going to give me change." Ada laughed while counting the money. "And yet you keep trying." "I like testing my luck." She handed him the extra money. "Then your luck is still bad." Both of them laughed. Mama Grace, who was arranging vegetables nearby, smiled to herself. "They're happier than they realize," she whispered. Another trader nodded. God has a funny way of bringing people together. Neither Ada nor Ethan heard them. They were too busy talking about the simple things in life. Meanwhile, Vanessa Cole was growing more frustrated every day. She had expected Ada to disappear after learning Ethan's true identity. Instead, the two of them seemed even closer than before. She sat inside her office, staring angrily at a photograph one of her assistants had secretly taken. It showed Ethan standing beside Ada's banana stand, both of them smiling. Vanessa slammed the photograph onto her desk. "I don't understand. What does he see in her?" Her assistant stood quietly. "Ma'am." "What?" "Perhaps he simply likes her." Vanessa glared at him. "Impossible. She's poor. She sells bananas. She has nothing." The assistant wisely remained silent. Vanessa stood and walked toward the window. "I've spent years trying to get Ethan's attention." And suddenly, a roadside trader appears. She clenched her fists. "No, I won't lose." The following Tuesday, Ethan had an important meeting at one of his largest construction sites. A new luxury hotel was being built on the outskirts of Lagos. Hundreds of workers moved around the site. Some carried cement. Others operated machines. Large cranes lifted heavy building materials high into the air. Ethan always enjoyed visiting construction sites. Unlike meetings in expensive offices, these places reminded him how buildings were truly created. By hard-working people, not by people sitting behind desks. James walked beside him carrying several documents. "The engineers are waiting. Let's go." As they walked across the site, workers greeted Ethan respectfully. "Good morning, sir." "Morning. Good to see you, sir." Ethan smiled and greeted many of them by name. He believed every worker deserved respect. One of the engineers began explaining the next stage of construction. Everything seemed normal. No one noticed the white delivery van parked just outside the gate. Inside the van sat 4 armed men. They had been watching Ethan since morning. One of them lowered a pair of binoculars. "That's him. The billionaire." Another man smiled. "Today we'll become very rich." The leader looked at the others. "Remember the plan. We grab him, get him into the van. We're gone before security knows what happened." The others nodded. At almost the same time, Ada was walking along a nearby road carrying a smaller basket of bananas. Business at her usual market had been slow that morning. One of the workers from the construction site often bought bananas for his team. He had asked Ada to deliver some directly. She happily agreed. As she approached the site, the security guards recognized her. "You're the banana seller." Ada smiled. "Yes. The workers ordered these." One guard nodded. "You can go in." She thanked him and walked inside. Several workers smiled when they saw her. "The bananas are here." She laughed. I brought enough for everyone. While the workers gathered around her basket, Ethan noticed her from across the site. His face immediately brightened. Ada, she turned. Ethan, what are you doing here? She lifted the basket slightly. Your workers ordered bananas. He laughed. I didn't know. They're good customers. I'm glad. James smiled as he watched them. It was obvious how happy Ethan became whenever Ada was around. Just then, everything changed. The white delivery van suddenly crashed through the construction site's entrance gate. Security guards shouted. What is happening? The van stopped suddenly. Four masked men jumped out holding guns. Nobody move! Workers screamed. Some ran for cover. Others dropped to the ground. One kidnapper pointed his gun directly at Ethan. You! Come with us! James stepped in front of Ethan. Another kidnapper pushed him aside. Move! Security guards tried to respond, but the kidnappers fired warning shots into the air. Bang! Bang! Panic spread across the site. Workers ran in every direction. Ethan remained surprisingly calm. What do you want? The leader smiled. Your family will know soon enough. Two kidnappers grabbed Ethan's arms and began dragging him toward the waiting van. James shouted desperately, Security! Stop them! But everything was happening too quickly. Ada watched in shock. Her heart pounded. She looked around desperately. Most people were hiding. Some security guards were trying to reach the kidnappers, but they were too far away. If the van left, Ethan would be gone. Without thinking, Ada dropped her basket. Bananas rolled across the dusty ground. She noticed a thick wooden plank lying beside a pile of building materials. Quickly, she picked it up. Years of carrying heavy baskets had made her incredibly strong. She gripped the plank tightly. No, she whispered. You won't take him. With all her strength, Ada ran toward the kidnappers. One of them noticed her. He laughed. Move aside. Instead, Ada swung the heavy wooden plank. Thud! It struck the kidnapper's arm. His gun fell to the ground. Ah! The sudden attack surprised everyone. The second kidnapper turned toward her angrily. You fool! He rushed forward. Ada swung again. The thick plank hit his shoulder. He stumbled backward. Workers watched in amazement. The banana seller! She's fighting them! The leader became furious. Grab her! The remaining kidnappers charged toward Ada. She stepped backward, holding the plank firmly. One man tried to grab her. Ada pushed him hard. He lost his balance and fell into a pile of sand. Another kidnapper raised his gun. Before he could aim, one brave construction worker threw a bucket of gravel at him. The gravel struck his face. He cried out in pain. That gave Ada another chance. She hit the man's arm with the plank. His gun dropped beside him. At that exact moment, the security guards finally reached the scene. Drop your weapons! The kidnappers realized they had lost the advantage. The leader shouted angrily, Get back to the van! They quickly jumped inside. The driver started the engine. The van sped away through the damaged gate before security officers could block the exit. Within seconds, they were gone. Silence filled the construction site. Workers slowly stood up from where they had been hiding. Everyone looked toward Ada. She was breathing heavily. Her hands still gripped the wooden plank. Ethan stared at her in disbelief. You! He walked toward her slowly. You came after armed kidnappers. Ada finally dropped the plank. I couldn't just stand there. James shook his head in amazement. They had guns. I know. You weren't afraid? Ada smiled weakly. I was terrified. Then why did you do it? She looked at Ethan. Because they were taking my friend. Those simple words touched Ethan deeply. My friend. Not billionaire. Not wealthy businessman. Just friend. Several workers began clapping. Soon the entire construction site joined in. The applause grew louder. One worker shouted, She's a hero. Another smiled. She saved our boss. The security chief walked over. If she hadn't delayed them, they would have escaped with Mr. Williams. James nodded. She's right. Ethan looked at Ada with admiration unlike anything he had ever felt before. You risked your life. Ada shrugged gently. I've done dangerous things before, but never like this. Police officers arrived a few minutes later. They questioned everyone who had witnessed the attack. One officer approached Ada. Were you the woman who fought the kidnappers? She smiled shyly. I suppose so. The officer laughed. I've never heard of anyone chasing armed kidnappers with a wooden plank. Nearby workers laughed too. Ada scratched the back of her head. I wasn't really thinking. You were very brave. Another officer collected statements from Ethan and James. We'll do everything we can to find them. Ethan nodded. Thank you. After the police left, the workers slowly returned to their duties. James turned to Ada. Thank you. She smiled. You don't have to thank me. I do. You saved his life. Ethan stepped closer. So did you. Ada looked confused. What do you mean? When you came into my life, you reminded me that kindness still exists. She smiled softly. I only sell bananas. Ethan shook his head. No, you do much more than that. Their eyes met. For a few seconds, the noisy construction site seemed to disappear around them. Neither of them spoke. The moment felt peaceful despite everything that had just happened. James quietly smiled. He had seen many people protect Ethan because they were paid to do so. But Ada had acted without expecting anything in return. That kind of loyalty could not be bought. Later that afternoon, Ethan insisted on driving Ada back to the market. As they sat inside the car, neither of them spoke for several minutes. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. You scared me today. Ada looked at him. I scared you. When you ran toward those kidnappers. What if they had shot you? She smiled gently. I didn't think about that. I know. That's what frightened me. He tightened his hands on the steering wheel. I don't know what I would have done if something had happened to you. Ada looked out the window quietly. His words warmed her heart. She could hear how sincere he was. When they reached the market, Ethan helped her carry the basket that still contained a few unbroken bananas. Before leaving, he looked at her. Promise me something. What? If you're ever in danger again. Think about yourself too. Ada smiled. I'll try. No. Promise. She laughed softly. I promise. Ethan smiled with relief. As he drove away, he could no longer hide the truth from himself. The fear he felt when the kidnappers pointed their guns. The relief he felt when Ada was safe. The pride he felt watching her stand up against danger. All of it led to one undeniable truth. He was deeply in love with the poor banana seller. And although he had not yet found the courage to say the words, his heart already knew that Ada Okafor was the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. The kidnapping attempt changed everything. Although Ethan Williams continued going to work every day, his heart was no longer at peace. He could not forget the moment when the kidnappers dragged him toward the van. He remembered the fear in the eyes of his workers. He remembered the sound of gunshots. But above all, he remembered Ada running toward armed men with nothing but a heavy wooden plank in her hands. She could have been killed. Yet she never stopped to think about herself. She only thought about saving him. That memory stayed with Ethan day and night. One evening, after finishing work, he sat alone on the balcony of his mansion. The city lights stretched far into the distance. His large house was quiet. Too quiet. James walked onto the balcony carrying 2 cups of coffee. I thought you might need this, he said with a smile. Ethan accepted 1 cup. Thanks. James sat beside him. You've been quiet all day. Ethan looked at the stars. I've been thinking. About Ada? Ethan smiled. Is it really that obvious? James laughed softly. To everyone except you. Ethan shook his head. I've spent years believing I understood business. I know how to build companies. I know how to solve problems. But this, he placed his hand over his chest. I don't know what to do. James smiled. I think you do. Ethan looked at him. You love her. The words hung in the air. For a few moments Ethan said nothing. Then he slowly nodded. I do. I've been trying to convince myself it's only friendship. But every time I see her, I feel something I've never felt before. James smiled. Then tell her. Ethan sighed. What if she doesn't feel the same way? You'll never know unless you ask. Ethan looked into his coffee cup. I don't want to pressure her. I don't want her to think I'm using my money. James shook his head. Then don't use your money. Use your heart. Those words stayed with Ethan long after James left. For the first time, he admitted the truth to himself. He loved Ada, not because she was beautiful, not because she was strong, not because she had saved his life. He loved her because she was kind even when life was hard. She remained honest when dishonesty would have been easier. She cared about strangers without expecting anything in return. She had shown him a kind of wealth that money could never buy. The next morning, Ethan visited the roadside market as usual. Ada was already arranging bananas. The sunlight made the ripe yellow fruits shine. She looked up and smiled. Good morning. Good morning. He noticed she looked tired. Didn't you sleep well? Ada laughed softly. My grandmother kept me awake. Is she all right? She's fine. She just couldn't stop talking. What was she talking about? Ada smiled shyly. You. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Me? She thinks you're a good man. I hope she's right. I think she is. Both of them smiled. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Finally, Ethan cleared his throat. Ada. Yes. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow evening? Ada looked surprised. Dinner? Yes. As friends. She studied his face for a few seconds. He looked nervous. Very nervous. She smiled gently. I'd like that. Relief washed over Ethan. Really? Really? He laughed. I was afraid you would say no. I almost did. His face fell. Then she laughed. I'm joking. Ethan laughed too. You scared me. I wanted to. The nearby traders smiled as they watched the two of them laughing together. Mama Grace whispered, Those two are becoming impossible to separate. Another trader nodded. I think love is already growing. That evening, Ethan could barely concentrate on work. He kept thinking about the dinner. He wanted everything to be perfect. But he also wanted it to feel simple. He did not want Ada to think he was trying to impress her with money. He wanted her to see the man she had come to know, not the billionaire. He called James into his office. I need your advice. James smiled. This sounds serious. It is. I'm taking Ada to dinner. James clapped happily. Finally, I need somewhere quiet. Not expensive. Not flashy. James thought for a moment. What about the beach? Ethan looked interested. The beach. There's a small restaurant near the water. No reporters. No businessmen. Just good food and peace. Ethan smiled. Perfect. The next evening, Ethan drove to Ada's apartment. He stepped out of the car carrying a small bouquet of fresh flowers. When Ada opened the door, she looked surprised. The flowers are beautiful. I thought your grandmother might like them. Ada smiled warmly. She will. Her grandmother welcomed Ethan inside. My son. It's good to see you again. It's good to see you too. The old woman accepted the flowers happily. They're lovely. She looked at Ada and smiled knowingly. You should not keep him waiting. Ada laughed. We're just going to dinner. I know. The old woman smiled even wider. Go and enjoy yourselves. A few minutes later, Ethan and Ada were driving toward the beach. The evening sky was painted with beautiful shades of orange and pink. Neither of them felt the need to speak much. The silence between them felt comfortable. When they arrived, gentle waves rolled onto the shore. A cool breeze blew through the air. The restaurant was small and peaceful. Soft music played quietly in the background. Only a few other customers were there. Ada looked around with admiration. It's beautiful. I thought you might like it. I do. They chose a table overlooking the ocean. After ordering their meals, they spent several minutes simply watching the waves. It's peaceful here, Ada said. It is. I come here sometimes when work becomes too stressful. She smiled. I understand why. The food arrived. As they ate, they talked about their childhoods. Ada told Ethan about helping her father on the farm. I used to carry fruits with him every morning. That's how I became so strong. Ethan smiled. I've always admired your strength. She laughed. Most people make fun of it. They're wrong. I think it suits you. Ada looked down shyly. Thank you. Then Ethan spoke about his own childhood. My father worked almost every day. I hardly saw him. My mother wanted me to become successful. So I spent most of my life studying and working. Were you happy? Ada asked. He thought for a moment. I was comfortable, but I wasn't always happy. And now, he looked directly into her eyes. Now I'm happier than I've been in years. Ada smiled softly. I'm glad. The waiter cleared away their empty plates. The sun slowly disappeared beyond the ocean. The sky became darker. Small lights around the restaurant began glowing. The sound of the waves filled the quiet evening. Ethan suddenly became nervous. His heart beat faster. He knew this was the moment. He reached across the table and gently took Ada's hand. She looked at him in surprise. Ethan? He smiled nervously. I've been trying to find the right words. You don't have to. I do. He took a deep breath. When I first saw you, you were helping a blind man cross the road. Then you saved a little boy. You helped strangers. You cared for your grandmother. You stood up to Vanessa. You fought kidnappers to save me. He shook his head slowly. I've met many people in my life. Rich people, powerful people, famous people. But I've never met anyone with a heart like yours. Ada's eyes became watery. Ethan, he continued, I don't care that you sell bananas. I don't care that we come from different worlds. I don't care what anyone says. I love you. The words were simple, but they came from the deepest part of his heart. For a moment, Ada could not speak. Tears slowly rolled down her cheeks. Ethan became worried. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you cry. She laughed through her tears. They're happy tears. He smiled. Really? She nodded. I've been trying not to fall in love with you. His eyes widened. You have. I kept telling myself we were only friends. But every morning, I looked forward to seeing you. When you were hurt by the kidnappers, I was terrified. When you smiled, I smiled too. She squeezed his hand gently. I love you too. For a few seconds, neither of them moved. They simply looked into each other's eyes. The sound of the ocean surrounded them. The world seemed to disappear. Slowly, Ethan stood. He walked around the table. He gently wiped the tears from Ada's face. Then, with her silent permission, he leaned forward and kissed her softly. It was gentle, respectful, full of love. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. I've dreamed about doing that, Ethan admitted. Ada laughed. I guessed. You did. You looked at me like you wanted to. Both of them laughed together. The waiter, who had quietly witnessed the moment from a distance, smiled warmly but respectfully stayed away. Neither Ethan nor Ada noticed. They were too busy enjoying the happiest moment of their lives. After leaving the restaurant, they walked slowly along the beach. The moon reflected on the water. The cool breeze played with Ada's hair. She slipped her hand into Ethan's. He held it gently. I have to tell you something, Ethan said. What? My family probably won't accept us. Ada looked at him calmly. I expected that. They'll say you're too poor. I know. They'll say you don't belong in our world. She smiled softly. I've heard worse. Ethan stopped walking. He turned to face her. I don't care what anyone says. I choose you. Ada looked into his eyes. She knew he meant every word. And I choose you too. They hugged beneath the moonlight as the waves rolled gently onto the shore. Far away, hidden behind a parked car near the entrance to the beach, someone lowered a camera. The photographer quickly checked the pictures. There were several clear photographs of Ethan and Ada holding hands. One even showed them kissing. The photographer smiled. He picked up his phone and made a call. I got the pictures. A familiar voice answered from the other end. Excellent. It was Vanessa Cole. Send them to me immediately. The photographer smiled. Consider it done. As Ethan and Ada continued walking hand in hand along the beach, completely unaware that someone had been watching them, they believed this was the beginning of the happiest chapter of their lives. Neither of them realized that the photographs taken that night would soon bring a storm they had never expected. The morning after their dinner by the beach, Ethan Williams woke up with a smile on his face. For the first time in many years, he felt truly happy. He stood by the window of his bedroom, looking at the sunrise over Lagos. Everything looked brighter than usual. He could still remember the moment Ada had looked into his eyes and said, "I love you too." Those words played over and over in his mind. He laughed quietly to himself. "I can't believe it." A knock came at his bedroom door. "Come in." James walked inside carrying Ethan's schedule for the day. "Good morning, sir." "Good morning, James." James immediately noticed the smile. "You look very happy today." Ethan laughed. "I am." "So, she said yes?" Ethan looked surprised. "How did you know?" James smiled proudly. "I've known you for years. You've never smiled like this before." Ethan nodded. "She loves me too." James clapped his hands happily. "I knew it. I'm happy for you, sir." "Thank you." James became serious. "So, when are you going to tell your family?" The smile slowly disappeared from Ethan's face. "I've been thinking about that." James sighed. "It won't be easy." "I know. My mother already wants me to marry Vanessa." James nodded. "And now she'll discover you're dating someone else." Ethan looked out the window again. "I don't want my family to hear it from gossip. I'll tell them myself." James smiled. "That's the right thing to do." Across the city, Ada was also getting ready for work. She hummed happily while arranging bananas inside her basket. Her grandmother watched her from the doorway. "You've been smiling since yesterday." Ada laughed shyly. "Have I?" "You know you have." The old woman walked closer. "So, did Ethan finally tell you how he feels?" Ada covered her face with her hands. "Grandma!" The old woman laughed loudly. "I'll take that as a yes." Ada smiled warmly. "He said he loves me." "And what did you say?" "I told him I love him too." Her grandmother hugged her tightly. "I'm so happy for you." Ada rested her head on the old woman's shoulder. "But I'm also nervous." "Why?" "His family." The old woman's smile became gentler. "They may not accept you." "I know. They're rich. I'm only a banana seller." Her grandmother held both of Ada's hands. "My child, never think you're less than anyone. You earn an honest living. You have a good heart. No amount of money can make someone better than you." Ada smiled. "I'll remember that." Later that afternoon, Ethan called his mother. "Mom, Ethan, I'd like to visit this evening." "Of course. Is everything all right?" "I need to talk to the family." His mother's voice became excited. "Wonderful. I'll ask your father to come home early." After ending the call, Ethan took a deep breath. This conversation would change everything. Meanwhile, something else was happening. Vanessa Cole sat inside her office looking at the photographs taken at the beach. Picture after picture showed Ethan and Ada smiling together. One picture showed them holding hands. Another showed Ethan kissing Ada. Vanessa's face twisted with anger. "So, it's true." She stood up suddenly. "If Ethan won't leave her, I'll make his family separate them." Without wasting another second, she placed the photographs into an envelope. Then she drove toward the Williams family mansion. That evening, Ethan arrived at his parents' house. His father, Richard Williams, was already waiting in the living room. Richard was a respected businessman with a calm personality. Unlike Ethan's mother, he rarely interfered in his son's personal life. "Ethan, Dad." They shook hands warmly. A few moments later, Ethan's mother joined them. "I'm glad you're here." She smiled. "I've prepared your favorite meal." Before Ethan could answer, the front door opened. A servant walked inside. "Madam, Miss Vanessa is here." Ethan frowned slightly. I didn't invite her. His mother smiled. I did. Vanessa walked confidently into the room. She greeted everyone politely before looking at Ethan. Good evening. Good evening. She noticed his expression. You don't seem surprised to see me. I wasn't expecting company. Vanessa smiled politely. I won't stay long. I only came because I have something important to show your parents. Ethan looked confused. What do you mean? Without answering, Vanessa handed the envelope to Ethan's mother. I think you should look inside. His mother opened the envelope. As she removed the photographs, the smile disappeared from her face. One by one, she looked through them. Then she looked at Ethan. What is this? Richard took the photographs from her. His expression also became serious. The room fell silent. Finally, Ethan spoke. It's exactly what it looks like. His mother stared at him. You're dating that banana seller? Ethan nodded. Yes. His mother's face became pale. No. Ethan. Tell me this isn't serious. It is. Vanessa folded her arms quietly. Everything was happening exactly as she had planned. His mother stood up. Have you lost your mind? She's poor. So? She sells bananas on the roadside. So? People will laugh at this family. Ethan remained calm. I don't care. His mother looked shocked. You don't care? No. I love her. The room became completely silent. Richard slowly placed the photographs on the table. He looked carefully at his son. Do you truly love her? Yes. With all my heart. Vanessa could not stay quiet any longer. Ethan, think carefully. You deserve someone who understands your world. I do. And that's Ada. Vanessa stared at him. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious. His mother walked toward him. Ethan, do you know what people will say? They'll say the Williams family has lost its dignity. Ethan looked directly into her eyes. Then let them talk. His mother shook her head in disbelief. I raised you better than this. No. You raised me to respect people. That's exactly what I'm doing. Richard quietly watched the conversation. He could see the determination in Ethan's eyes. He had rarely seen his son speak with such confidence. His mother pointed toward the photographs. She wants your money. Ethan smiled sadly. She didn't even know I was rich. The room became silent again. His mother blinked. What? When we first met? She thought I was an ordinary construction worker. Vanessa looked surprised. You lied to her? I hid my identity. Why? Because I wanted someone to know me. Not my money. His mother sat down slowly. She really didn't know? No. When she discovered the truth, she stopped talking to me. His mother looked confused. Why? Because she was hurt that I lied. Richard smiled faintly. That doesn't sound like someone chasing wealth. Vanessa quickly interrupted. She could be pretending. Ethan looked at her calmly. She returns extra money every time I buy bananas. What? I've tried many times. She only accepts what she earns. Richard became interested. Really? Ethan nodded. She even refused to let me pay for bananas that someone else destroyed. His father leaned back thoughtfully. His mother remained unconvinced. I still don't approve. Ethan, our family belongs to high society. She won't fit in. Ethan smiled gently. Maybe high society needs more people like Ada. Vanessa could not hide her frustration. This is ridiculous. You're choosing a roadside trader over your future. Ethan answered without hesitation. I already chose. His mother folded her arms. Then bring her here. Ethan looked surprised. What? I want to meet her. If she's really as wonderful as you claim, I'll judge for myself. Vanessa's eyes widened. She had expected Ethan's mother to reject Ada immediately. Instead, she wanted to meet her. Vanessa quickly stood. I think that's unnecessary. His mother looked at her. No. I want to see the woman who changed my son's heart. Vanessa forced a smile. Of course. But I really should leave now. She politely said goodbye before walking toward the door. The moment she stepped outside, her smile disappeared. This isn't over. She got into her car and drove away angrily. 2 days later, Ethan arrived at the market. Ada immediately noticed he looked nervous. "Good morning." "Morning." She tilted her head. "Something's wrong." He smiled weakly. "My family knows about us." Ada's smile slowly faded. "They do." He nodded. "They want to meet you." Ada became silent. She had expected this moment. But now that it had arrived, she felt afraid. "What if they hate me?" Ethan gently held her hands. "They might." She looked down. "I'm just a banana seller." He softly lifted her chin until she looked at him again. "You're much more than that. You're kind. You're honest. You're brave. And you're the woman I love." Tears gathered in Ada's eyes. "What if they ask me to leave you?" Ethan answered without hesitation. "I won't." "What if they insult me?" "I'll stand beside you." "What if they never accept me?" He smiled gently. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving they were wrong." Ada looked deeply into his eyes. She believed every word. She slowly nodded. "I'll meet them." Ethan smiled with relief. "Thank you." The nearby traders had quietly been listening. After Ethan walked away, Mama Grace approached Ada. "My daughter." Ada turned. "I'm scared." Mama Grace hugged her warmly. "That's normal. I don't know how to behave around rich people." The old woman smiled. "Behave like yourself. That's the woman Ethan fell in love with." Ada smiled. "You really think so?" "I know so." That evening, Ada stood outside her small apartment looking up at the stars. She thought about the meeting that was coming. Would Ethan's family insult her? Would they reject her because she was poor? Would they try to separate them? She did not know. But one thing was certain. She loved Ethan. And no matter what happened, she would never pretend to be someone she was not. Far away, inside his mansion, Ethan stood at his own window looking at the same night sky. He whispered softly, "No matter what happens tomorrow, I'll never let you face it alone." Neither of them realized that the meeting with Ethan's family would become the greatest test their love had ever faced. The day Ethan's family would finally meet Ada arrived sooner than either of them expected. From the moment she woke up, Ada felt nervous. She stood in front of the small mirror hanging on the wall of her apartment and looked at herself quietly. She was wearing her best dress. It was simple, light blue, and neatly ironed. It was not expensive. She did not own designer clothes or expensive jewelry. The only necklace she wore was a small silver cross that had belonged to her late mother. She gently touched it. "Mom," she whispered, "I wish you were here today." Behind her, her grandmother smiled warmly. "You look beautiful." Ada turned around. "You really think so?" "I know so. But compared to Ethan's family." Her grandmother walked over and held both of her hands. "My child, you are not going there to compete with anyone. You are going there as yourself." Ada nodded slowly. "I'll try." Her grandmother laughed softly. "Don't try. Just be yourself." Ada smiled. Those words gave her a little confidence. A few minutes later, the sound of a car stopping outside filled the quiet street. Ada looked through the window. Ethan had arrived. He stepped out of his black SUV carrying a small bouquet of fresh flowers. As always, he smiled the moment he saw Ada. She opened the door. "Good morning." "Good morning." He looked at her for several seconds. "You look beautiful." Ada blushed. "Thank you." She laughed shyly. "You don't look so bad yourself." Both of them smiled. Ethan handed the flowers to Ada's grandmother. "These are for you." The old woman accepted them happily. "You spoil me every time you visit." Ethan laughed. "You deserve them." Her grandmother looked at both of them and smiled knowingly. "You two should leave. I don't want to keep Mr. Williams' family waiting." Ada hugged her grandmother before leaving. "Pray for me." "I already have. And I'll keep praying." The drive to the Williams mansion was quiet. Ada looked out of the window as expensive houses passed by. The streets became cleaner. The buildings became larger. Luxury cars lined the roads. Everything looked so different from the neighborhood where she lived. She quietly took a deep breath. Ethan noticed immediately. "You're nervous." She smiled weakly. "A little." He gently reached over and held her hand. "You don't have to pretend." "I'm terrified." He laughed softly. "That sounds more honest." She smiled. "What if I say the wrong thing?" "You won't." "What if your mother doesn't like me?" He looked at her calmly. "Then that's her decision. My decision is already made." Ada looked at him. "You really mean that?" "I do. No matter what happens today, I'm on your side." Those simple words gave Ada strength. When they finally arrived at the mansion, Ada stared at the huge gates. They slowly opened. Beautiful gardens surrounded the enormous house. Fountains decorated the front yard. Luxury cars filled the driveway. Ada had never seen anything like it before. "It looks like a hotel," she whispered. Ethan laughed. "I've heard that before." A servant opened the front door before they even reached it. "Welcome home, sir." "Thank you." The servant smiled politely at Ada. "Welcome, madam." Ada smiled shyly. "Thank you." Inside, everything looked elegant. Large paintings covered the walls. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. The marble floor reflected the light beautifully. Ada admired everything quietly, not because she wanted such wealth, but because she had never imagined a house could be so beautiful. Ethan's mother was already waiting in the living room. Richard Williams stood beside her. Vanessa was also there. The moment Vanessa saw Ada, she forced a smile that did not reach her eyes. "So, you actually came." Ada greeted everyone politely. "Good afternoon." Richard smiled warmly. "Welcome." His wife nodded politely. "Please sit." Ada thanked her before sitting beside Ethan. For a few moments, nobody spoke. Finally, Ethan's mother broke the silence. "So, you're Ada?" "Yes, ma'am." "You sell bananas?" "Yes." "How long have you been doing that?" 7 years. "Do you enjoy it?" Ada smiled gently. "It isn't easy, but honest work is something I'm proud of." Richard quietly nodded. He liked her answer. Vanessa folded her arms. "Surely you want something better." Ada looked at her calmly. "I want to grow. I'd like to own a fruit shop one day, but I'm not ashamed of where I started." Richard smiled again. His wife remained expressionless. "What about your parents?" she asked. Ada lowered her eyes. "They passed away in a road accident." "I'm sorry." "Thank you. I've lived with my grandmother ever since." Silence filled the room. Ethan quietly reached for Ada's hand beneath the table. She squeezed it gently. His silent support comforted her. After a while, lunch was served. The dining table was covered with delicious food. Ada had never seen so many different dishes in one place. She quietly waited until everyone began eating before serving herself. Ethan's mother noticed. "You have good manners." "My grandmother taught me." "What else did she teach you?" Ada smiled. "To respect everyone, whether rich or poor." Richard nodded thoughtfully. "That's a valuable lesson." Vanessa rolled her eyes quietly. Throughout the meal, Ethan's mother continued asking questions. "What are your dreams?" Ada answered honestly. "I want my grandmother to live comfortably. I'd like to own a proper fruit business. And someday," she smiled at Ethan, "I want a happy family." Vanessa laughed softly. "A happy family? That's all." Ada looked at her. "I think happiness is more valuable than luxury." The room became quiet. Richard smiled. "Well said." His wife looked at Ada carefully. For the first time, she saw confidence instead of fear. Ada was not pretending to be someone else. She was simply speaking from her heart. After lunch, they moved into the garden. The flowers were blooming beautifully. Birds sang from nearby trees. As they walked, Ethan's mother suddenly stopped. "Ada." "Yes, ma'am?" "I want to ask you one important question." Ada nodded. "Go ahead." If Ethan lost everything tomorrow, his companies, his money, his houses, would you still love him? Vanessa smiled confidently. She believed Ada would hesitate. Instead, Ada answered immediately, "Yes." Everyone looked surprised. She continued, "When I met Ethan, I thought he was an ordinary construction worker. I already cared about him. I only discovered he was rich much later." She smiled gently. "I fell in love with the man, not the billionaire." Silence filled the garden. Even Vanessa had nothing to say. Richard smiled proudly. He looked at his wife. "I believe her." His wife remained quiet. She was beginning to see the truth. Just then, a servant hurried outside. "Sir." Richard turned. "What is it?" "The kitchen caught fire." Everyone looked toward the back of the house. Smoke rose through one of the windows. Several servants ran around in panic. Without thinking, Ada immediately ran toward the kitchen. "Ada!" Ethan shouted, but she was already moving. Inside the kitchen, one frightened young maid stood frozen near the flames. She looked no older than 18. She was crying. "I can't get out." Ada quickly grabbed a nearby fire blanket. She wrapped it around herself before rushing inside. The smoke made it difficult to breathe. She reached the frightened maid. "Come with me." The girl was too scared to move. Ada grabbed her hand firmly. "It's okay. I've got you." Together they ran toward the back door just as another servant used a fire extinguisher to control the flames. A few moments later, everyone stood safely outside. The young maid burst into tears. "You saved me." Ada smiled. "I'm just glad you're all right." Ethan walked over quickly. "Are you hurt?" Ada shook her head. "I'm fine." His mother stared at Ada in complete surprise. Most visitors would have run away from danger. Ada had run toward it. Richard looked at his wife. "Do you see now?" She slowly nodded. "Yes." Later that afternoon, after the excitement had ended, Ethan's mother asked Ada to sit with her alone in the garden. The two women remained silent for a few moments. Finally, Ethan's mother spoke. "When Ethan first told me about you, I judged you." Ada listened quietly. "I thought you wanted his money. I thought you would embarrass our family." She sighed deeply. "I was wrong." Ada smiled gently. "I understand." "No. You were kinder than I deserved." She looked directly into Ada's eyes. "You've shown me something today." "What?" "Character. You didn't try to impress us. You didn't pretend. You simply remained yourself." Tears gathered in her eyes. "And when the kitchen caught fire, you didn't think about yourself. You thought about saving someone else." Ada smiled softly. "I couldn't leave her." "I know." Ethan's mother reached for Ada's hand. "I'm sorry. Can you forgive me?" Ada smiled warmly. "Of course." The older woman hugged her tightly. From a distance, Ethan watched everything. His heart filled with happiness. Richard walked over and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "I think your mother has finally seen what you saw." Ethan smiled. "I hoped she would." Richard nodded. "You chose well." Those words meant more to Ethan than his father realized. As evening approached, Ethan prepared to take Ada home. Before they left, his mother stopped them. "Wait." She handed Ada a small wrapped box. "What's this?" "A gift." Ada quickly shook her head. "I can't accept expensive gifts." His mother smiled. "Please, open it." Ada slowly unwrapped the box. Inside was a simple gold bracelet. Nothing flashy. Nothing covered in diamonds. Just elegant and beautiful. "It's lovely." It belonged to Ethan's grandmother. The room became silent. His mother smiled. She always said it should be given to a woman with a kind heart. Tears filled Ada's eyes. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Wear it." Ada carefully placed the bracelet on her wrist. It fit perfectly. Ethan smiled. "It looks beautiful on you." "So does the woman wearing it." Ada laughed through her tears. As they drove away from the mansion that evening, she looked down at the bracelet again. "I never expected today to end like this." Ethan smiled. "Neither did I." She looked at him. "Your family surprised me." "They surprised me too." He reached for her hand. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being yourself." Ada smiled warmly. I didn't know how to be anyone else. As the car disappeared into the evening traffic, peace finally settled over both of their hearts. The greatest obstacle between them had begun to disappear. But life still had one final surprise waiting for the poor banana seller and the handsome billionaire. A surprise that would change not only their own future, but also the lives of hundreds of struggling traders across Lagos. Several weeks passed after Ada met Ethan's family. Life slowly returned to normal. Every morning, Ada woke before sunrise, prepared breakfast for her grandmother, and carried her basket of bananas to the roadside market. Many people wondered why she still sold bananas. After all, everyone now knew she was dating one of the richest businessmen in Nigeria. Some traders even asked her the same question every day. One morning, a young woman walked over to her stand. Ada. Yes. Why are you still here? Ada smiled. What do you mean? You're going to marry a billionaire. You don't need to work anymore. Ada gently arranged another bunch of bananas before answering. I don't work because I have to. I work because honest work gives me joy. The young woman looked surprised. But Ethan could buy you anything. Ada laughed softly. I know, but I don't want to forget who I am. Mama Grace, who had been listening nearby, smiled proudly. I told everyone this girl has a heart of gold. The other traders nodded in agreement. Ada had not changed. She still greeted everyone with kindness. She still gave extra bananas to hungry children. She still helped elderly traders carry heavy baskets. Money had not changed her heart. Across the city, Ethan was also changing. His recent experiences had opened his eyes. For years, he had built large office buildings, hotels, and luxury homes. Now, whenever he visited the market to see Ada, he noticed something different. Many hard-working traders struggled every day. Some sold under leaking umbrellas. Others had no proper stalls. During the rainy season, many lost their goods because they had nowhere safe to keep them. One afternoon, Ethan quietly stood beside Ada's stall and watched an elderly woman struggle to lift a heavy basket. Without saying a word, he walked over and helped her. Thank you, my son, the woman said with a grateful smile. Ethan smiled back. It was nothing. After she walked away, Ada looked at him. You've been thinking. He laughed. Is it that obvious? You always become quiet when you're planning something. Ethan smiled. I've learned that from you. What are you planning? He looked around the busy market. I want to help. Ada tilted her head. You already help people. I mean something bigger. He pointed toward the old wooden stalls. These traders deserve better. Ada looked around too. She had worked there for 7 years. She knew every crack in the road, every leaking roof, every broken table. I've always wished someone would improve this place, she said softly. Ethan smiled. What if we did it together? Ada looked at him in surprise. Together? He nodded. You understand what the traders need. I have the resources to build it. Her eyes lit up with excitement. That would change so many lives. Exactly. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and Ada visited the market almost every evening. Instead of making decisions alone, they spoke with the traders. What do you need most? Ethan asked one afternoon. A fish seller answered first. A proper roof. Another trader spoke. Clean toilets. A fruit seller added. Storage rooms. Mama Grace smiled. And a small clinic nearby. Ethan wrote every suggestion in a notebook. Ada stood beside him, introducing him to every trader. Soon, everyone realized Ethan was not there to make promises. He was there to listen. That impressed them even more. 3 months later, construction finally began. The old market was carefully rebuilt section by section so traders could continue working. New roofs protected them from the rain. Wide walkways made it easier for customers to move around. Modern stalls replaced old wooden tables. There were clean restrooms, proper drainage, storage rooms, and even a small health clinic. At the entrance stood a large sign, Hope Community Market. When the traders saw it for the first time, many became emotional. Mama Grace wiped tears from her eyes. I never thought I'd live to see this. Ada smiled. This belongs to all of us. Ethan shook his head. It belongs to everyone who refused to give up. The market officially opened with music, dancing, and celebration. The governor attended. Local news reporters came. Business owners from across Lagos visited to see the new market. During the ceremony, the governor praised Ethan. You have invested in people, not just buildings. Then he looked at Ada. And you reminded us that one person's kindness can change an entire community. The crowd applauded loudly. Ada became shy. She had never liked being the center of attention. Later that evening, after the celebration ended, Ethan took Ada to the same beach where they had confessed their love. The waves rolled gently onto the shore. The cool breeze felt familiar. Ada smiled. I wondered why this place looked so familiar. Ethan laughed. It became special to me. It became special to me too. They walked slowly along the beach. Neither of them spoke for a while. The silence was peaceful. Finally, Ethan stopped walking. Ada. She turned toward him. Yes. You changed my life. She smiled. I think you changed mine too. He shook his head. No. You changed the way I see the world. You taught me that success means nothing if we forget people. You taught me that kindness is stronger than pride. You taught me that love is not measured by money. Ada's eyes became watery. Ethan. He reached into his jacket pocket. Her heart began to beat faster. Slowly, he knelt on one knee. In his hand was a small velvet box. He opened it. Inside was a beautiful engagement ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. People walking nearby stopped to watch. Some quietly smiled. Others pulled out their phones, hoping to capture the special moment. Ethan looked into Ada's eyes. When I first met you, you were carrying bananas. You had no idea who I was. You treated me with kindness before you knew my name. You loved me before you knew my wealth. I have searched my whole life for someone like you. He smiled warmly. Ada Okafor, will you marry me? Tears immediately rolled down Ada's cheeks. She covered her mouth with both hands. For several seconds, she could not speak. Ethan laughed nervously. I'll wait. She finally nodded. Yes. More tears flowed down her face. Yes. I'll marry you. The people nearby burst into applause. Some cheered loudly. One elderly couple smiled as they clapped. A little girl shouted. She said yes. Ethan gently placed the ring on Ada's finger. Then he stood up and hugged her tightly. They both laughed through happy tears. I love you, Ethan whispered. I love you too. A few months later, their wedding day arrived. Unlike many billionaire weddings, Ethan and Ada wanted something simple. Of course, their families attended. So did business partners. But the most important guests were the people from the market. Mama Grace wore her finest dress. The fish sellers, fruit sellers, mechanics, roadside traders, and construction workers all came. Even the young maid Ada had rescued from the kitchen attended. Richard Williams smiled proudly as he welcomed every guest. Ethan's mother personally greeted Ada's grandmother. I'm so happy you're here. The old woman smiled warmly. Thank you for accepting my granddaughter. No. Ethan's mother gently held her hand. Thank you for raising such an amazing young woman. The ceremony was filled with laughter, music, and joy. When it was time for the vows, Ethan looked at Ada. I promise to love you in every season of life. In success and in hardship. In laughter and in tears. You are my greatest blessing. Ada smiled through happy tears. I promise to stand beside you. I'll remind you where we came from. I'll encourage you when life becomes difficult. And I'll love you with all my heart. They exchanged rings. The minister smiled. I now pronounce you husband and wife. The entire church erupted into applause. Ethan kissed Ada as everyone celebrated. After the wedding reception, Ethan stood before all the guests. I have one more announcement. Everyone became quiet. He smiled at Ada before looking at the crowd. Today is not only about our marriage. It's also about giving back. He pointed towards several young traders sitting together. Starting today, The Ethan and Ada Foundation will provide small business grants to hardworking market traders, widows, and young entrepreneurs who need a chance to succeed. The room became silent. Then loud applause filled the hall. Many traders wiped tears from their eyes. Mama Grace smiled proudly. I knew these two would change lives. Ada looked at Ethan with surprise. You planned this? He smiled. No, we planned it. She laughed. I don't remember planning it. I remembered every conversation we had. You always wanted people to have opportunities. So now, they will. Ada hugged him tightly. Thank you. Months later, Hope Community Market became one of the busiest markets in Lagos. Small businesses grew. Families earned better incomes. Children returned to school because their parents could now afford school fees. The small clinic treated hundreds of people. The storage rooms reduced food waste. Visitors came from other cities to learn how the market had been transformed. Whenever reporters asked Ethan how the project began, he always smiled before giving the same answer. It started with a banana seller who taught me the true meaning of success. Whenever they asked Ada how she became the wife of a billionaire, she always laughed. I didn't fall in love with a billionaire. I fell in love with a kind man. Years later, people still told the story of the poor banana seller and the handsome billionaire. Some thought it was simply a love story. Others believed it was a story about courage. Many said it was about kindness. But those who truly understood knew it was about something even greater. It was proof that real love does not grow because of money, expensive houses, or powerful names. Real love grows through honesty, through sacrifice, through kindness, through trust. And when two people choose each other for who they truly are, no amount of wealth or poverty can separate them. As Ethan and Ada walked hand in hand through Hope Community Market, smiling at the traders who had become their family, they knew they had received the greatest gift of all. Not riches, not fame, not power, but a love that had begun with a simple bunch of bananas and had grown into a lifetime of happiness. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.